Then there's that youth who I try for years. And I go tell you, say, yo, like the reason why me have to do this now is because, hey, this positive thing now work. The youth them don't want to hear that.
Listen,
The youth them want to hear bust out head and all of them
as
things.
I've
That.
said, there is a space for all types of music because there are people who are willing to listen to different messages. A lot of it has to do with patience as well. You know, everybody want to bust and they want to bust big. You know, nobody wants to put in the work. You know, sometimes you see someone, you know, become successful and you think, oh, that person was an overnight success. They worked 20 years for the success that we're seeing. You know, a lot of these kids coming up now, they want immediate gratification. They want it now. You know, they want to put out a song and they want it now and they want it by any means necessary. Who is talking to them? Who are the people that are feeding them information? Because right about now, we need to have people who fill our cups up than empty it out.
I tolerate men.
We live in a risky world, you know? Yeah. So I can say. And, you know, we explore.
Men should always spend on a woman.
Appreciation is a big man.
Hi there. Need a ride? We've got you covered. With SKN Cabs, booking a ride takes 3 easy steps. I'm not that type of ride there. Come on now. Enter your pickup and drop off location. Choose your payment method. Get connected to a driver. You're on your way to your destination. If you're an Apple user, download SKN Cabs in the Apple Store. And if you're an Android user, unfortunately the app is still private, so you'd have to send your email to our WhatsApp. And also, remember to follow us on Instagram for all the latest updates, promotion, and maybe a few surprises along the way. So what are you waiting for? Download SKN Cabs now and follow us on Instagram. SKN Cabs. Transportation made easy.
Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of the Perspectives Podcast. I mean, we're coming to the closing of our Trinidad podcasting journey. I mean, what a 2 weeks this has been. The most interviews I've ever done in such short period of time. And with one of our finale guests. I mean, she's definitely not least as it relates to being one of the last. I would like you to pronounce that name because I feel like I'm going to botch it, you know. Give the people the correct pronunciation of that name.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and thank you for the inclusion. I appreciate it.
Right.
My name is Adana Ason of Creative Media Public Relations. I am a publicist, artist manager, and consultant in the entertainment industry, and I have been doing it for quite some time. I reside in Trinidad and Tobago, born, bred, and living here.
All right.
Happily.
That's a good bio to begin with. Now, you say you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
How long?
Definitely around over 13 years. I have been in the entertainment space.
And what was your introduction to the entertainment space?
The short version of the story is that my very good friend, Natasha Andrews, who is the manager for Soca Artists Lyrical, really gave me my start as a publicist in the entertainment space. You know, I knew that I wanted to do something impactful, and I always had a knack for speaking, and I loved reading. You know, anybody who knows me as a child would say that I was a chatterbug, and I probably still am, right?
Me too. That makes two of us.
Right. And as I grew into adulthood, you know, I fell in love with music. At some point in time, I had an entertainment website. And during that time of having the entertainment website, I realized very quickly that I can do more and be more impactful, because at that time I saw that a lot of the creatives in the space did not know how to tell their own stories, and they were not very aware of how to present themselves properly. And I knew that. I knew how to do that. So I felt that I could just do God's work and assist. And of course, I took it very seriously. I take what I do very seriously. So I went to school. I got my associate degree in journalism and PR. I have my bachelor's in media and communications and a lot of other, educational background to assist me. But that's really the short version of the story. It's way longer.
So you're a lady with a lot of accolades as it relates to entertainment.
I take what I do very seriously. I believe that you have to be knowledgeable about the business that you're in. And I don't like to half step with anything that I do, So in order to be the best, you have to remain consistent as far as educating yourself, right? About the business that you're in and mind your business, really.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, what was your first step into entertainment? Because you expressed the fact that, hey, you had an interest. But what was that first step? What was your first position in entertainment?
So going back to Natasha, at that point in time when I met her and we became friends, she and her now ex-husband had an entertainment and production company at that point in time called Mastermind Productions. And her then husband was also a musician in Bungie's then Asylum band, right? And they were churning out a lot of hit songs. So when I went to her with the idea of wanting to be involved in the industry and thinking about how I can be impactful, she said to me, anyone that comes through their studio as far as their productions or projects are concerned, that she would include me in any possible rollouts, how are they going to generate interest for them, reaching out to the radio stations and stuff like that. And that's really where my first introduction into the industry really started, where she was already doing it, even though her background is not public relations or communications. She really held my hand and said, okay, well, these are the things that we need to get done to generate interest for this album or this particular song. So come up with some ideas, have to reach out. I mean, around that time, websites were now becoming super popular. Blogs were gaining popularity at that point in time. And of course, we obviously had newspapers and television and stuff like that. So really media outreach was what I started to learn. And of course, writing press releases, sending them out, making phone calls to follow up. So that's really... That's really where it started.
Well, where did things go? Because you started there, but where did things go?
Where did things go? I mean, with everything, you have to be consistent, right? So continuously sending me projects to work on, I was able to develop my skills a bit more. But obviously, I started doing this before I even had the academic backing, right? So I thought to myself, hey, I have a pretty good idea of how this is supposed to work. I've been doing my research, of course, relying on Google, and publications and stuff like that. And I decided, hey, let me just go to school, So I enrolled in, my associate degree. And
that's how you kind of evolved into the whole entertainment space.
Yeah, I really found my voice. I think one pivotal moment for me, I remember, was one day she said to me, go Google yourself. I said, Google myself. She said, yeah, just go and type in your name, because by this time I was already sending out press releases and stuff like that. But, I was just excited to do it, I wasn't thinking about the brand that I really was creating for myself, because it really wasn't about me as much as it was something that I wanted to do. It really wasn't about me. And that really pivotal moment was when she told me to Google myself, and I typed in my name, you know, and press enter, and then I just started to see my name just pop up on the World Wide Web, written by, you know, credited. And I said, damn, I'm Googleable. I reach.
You reach. Right. No,
you can find me on the internet.
Right. Now, speaking of being reached now, or being there, I mean, Trinidad, this whole Trinidad music, were you involved in the soca scene or the dancehall scene? So
definitely the soca scene, and that's where a lot of my work is and continues to be. But of course, it's the entertainment industry nonetheless. So I have been able to observe. I've been in places and spaces, you know, to observe, you know, the movers and shakers in different genres of music here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So let's speak about soca first.
Yeah.
What space or state would you say soca is in at this point in time?
I think we're in a great place. I think soca is developing. It's obviously changed from the way it sounded and the way that it was presented when I was growing up. Some may argue that that may be a bad thing. But I think it's beautiful to see what's happening with the genre. I feel like the artists are creative, they're pushing the boundaries, they are proud about the stories that they are telling through music. You know, they are trying their best to show up for the world to see them and take them seriously, at least the majority of them. And that is commendable. You know, soca has been finding its way through a lot of different places and spaces where people can identify a lot of the movers and shakers in the industry. And that took a lot of doing to get to that point.
Now, as it relates to soca, criticism of soca is one-toned. It's basically happy music all the time. People are not happy all the time.
Yeah.
What's your comment on that?
I mean, there's a space for all types of music, right? Including happy music. So I don't see anything wrong with us creating music that is joyful, because there's music for everyone, yeah? However, I would say that over the years, there are different stories being told in soca music, you know? People are talking about their struggles. In music, for example, my client, Patrice Roberts, she has a song called Anxiety. And that came from the purest place. Patrice does battle with anxiety, you know, and I have seen her through some of those moments, obviously, and through that experience, and her going into studio one day really just to listen to music that was supposed to be pitched to her, and she opened up to the songwriters and the producer and said, you know, I've just been really dealing with some stuff, you know, and this is really where I'm at. And that then grew into the song that so many people have been able to relate to, that people are continuously meeting her and telling her thank you for speaking on their behalf, because it's really an issue that a lot of people are afraid to speak out on. It's so taboo, right, when we talk about mental health. So there have been a lot of conversations in these spaces about that. Yes, it's happy music, and I feel as though there should be music for everything and for everyone, you know. It's also heavily tied into our culture, you know, and carnival and festivities and revelry.
Yeah.
So,
and that's my next question now. Speaking of it being tied into carnival, there is this thing of that I have observed. That people basically telling me also that soca is very seasonal in Trinidad. And there's a season for dancehall. There's a season for what you call it? What the next one? The next one, the man.
Steam.
There's a steam season also. Now, how do you feel about that? The fact that soca is basically seasonal in Trinidad, because it's more year-round throughout the Caribbean, you know, because it travels with the different carnivals.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the fact that it's so seasonal in Trinidad?
Well, it's an ongoing conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a conversation that every year we have it, and I am seeing where a lot of the artists are trying to move away from that model. I think there are a lot of factors that may be affecting them from being able to create year round. For example, of course, we know the process of going into studio, that takes time, right? For a lot of our artists here in Trinidad and Tobago, once Carnival ends, they start to tour. You know, so that touring also takes away sometimes from the opportunity to create, right? But that should not be an excuse either, because again, I started off by saying you really have to mind your business. So they also have to find time to be inspired, whether it means taking a month off or whatever, but this is also their livelihood. So, you know, it's a kind of pull and tug, but I am seeing where music is being released throughout the year. And again, because you mentioned the various carnivals throughout the Caribbean.
Because there's where it's at, you know. All right. I'm based in St. Kitts.
Right.
St. Kitts Nevis. And the different socas, what is happening now, the fact that the Trinidadian soca artists are not putting out so much music year round. You have a new, it's not new, but right now, Boyan music is booming within the regions.
Yeah.
And it's because of the fact that these Boyan artists are dropping like right around the clock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's something that can be observed.
Yeah.
And the soca music from Trinidad is what's considered the real or the pure soca.
Yeah.
Because every island have their version of soca.
They do, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's all inspired by Trinidad.
Of course.
They might call it a different name, but it is a version of soca within itself.
Yeah, of course. I think definitely. And just to say that, I mean, with the seasonality, which I see a lot of the artists are trying to move away from, what a lot of them are doing too is for specific carnivals, they would release music for that carnival. So there might be a producer putting out a project for Spice Mass, and you would see Trinidad artists or artists from different islands featured on projects in Grenada or for Crop Over, or, you know, different spaces. So now you're seeing obviously more music happening and being released. So I think that the seasonality, hopefully very soon it will become a thing of the past where they'll just release music whenever they feel like it.
What I feel like is it's based on Trinidad, because the real big songs of soca are the big songs of Trinidad.
Right.
It's just like with dancehall. The realest big songs of dancehall, they would have all originated, like, even if them are come from other islands, they would have to get that impact in Jamaica. So the issue would be, like, how can we create that impact in Trinidad outside of the soca season?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the real issue is.
I mean, it's definitely a conversation. And again, as I said, it's an ongoing conversation. I've sat in so many different places and spaces where that conversation continues to come up. And I mean, over time, you know, we will tell, I agree that, of course, Trinidad is the benchmark. I mean, rightfully so, the genre was birthed in Trinidad and Tobago. You know what I mean? So a lot of the acts outside of Trinidad and Tobago obviously look at us for the benchmark, you know. But there are artists outside of Trinidad and Tobago who are also doing amazing work, as well, who are creating great projects. You know, you mentioned Bouillon in Dominica. There's Asa Banton, who is an amazing performer, who I say this and just, people might have to fight me, but literally you can't go into Dominica as a huge act from Trinidad and Tobago and expect to perform after Asa. That's not going to happen. You know, that's not going to happen at all. ASA is the benchmark, you know, in Bouillon, in Dominica, you know.
Definitely.
And it's happening in other places
Yeah, man,
as
because
well.
alright, like even in St. Kitts, we have Akai Suite. And I don't know if you know, but we have St. Kitts culture of soca, or our version of soca is something them call pep or Wilders music. And that's more focused and based around bands.
Right.
And like, no matter how big the artist, you can't perform after Sugar Band done. You dig what me say? Like,
I've heard that.
I'm gonna show you some videos. I have them videos like when to finish, if you put on Sugar Band before an artist perform, your event people will leave your event feeling like they not get the money's worth.
Yeah.
Because it's flat line when Sugar Band done with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I definitely understand what you say about Dominica and other places like even the Virgin Islands have Pumpa.
But I was just going to mention Pumpa. Like Pumpa is one of my clients. And Pumpa, I mean, was born in St. Kitts.
Yeah.
He left St. Kitts young and he grew up in the Virgin Islands. And this year, Pumpa's song is still making its round the A-list. But outside of that, I remember going to the Virgin Islands and I've known Pumpa for years and years and years and years, right? Maybe over 10 years. And I remember going to the Virgin Islands for the first time. I want to say it was St. Croix, if I'm not mistaken. And seeing Pumpa on a truck performing with a live band on the road during the parade day and looking at the masqueraders' responses, and I just couldn't understand. Like, it was a complete culture shock for me because the way that the masqueraders were reacting to the music that was being played, obviously the sound of the music wasn't what I was accustomed to. So I was thoroughly confused. And I remember having a conversation with him and I was like, yeah, but the masqueraders, like, I was looking at women rolling around on the ground, backflips, somersaults, and then I look up and it's a band, you know, just playing live music. That sounds a little too much for me, right? A little noisy, but I just couldn't understand, you know, and then he had to kind of explain because he came up in band as well and appreciates and always advocates for band performances too.
In the islands, if you check the islands, majority of them is bands.
Yeah.
The soca is driven by bands.
Especially in the islands that are considered, and I don't like to use this word, small islands.
Small
Islands. I don't like it.
Right.
I don't like it, but that is the referral, reference that's made.
But them kind of music, they like even the St. Kitts music, if you listen it, it's like you have elements, you have a lot of elements of the music of the past still. Like you would hear like the live instruments within it. And every one of them have them different flavor. Like coming from Jamaica because I'm originally Jamaican.
Right.
And actually getting to embrace the whole soca thing and learning about it and finding about like the different cultures. You get to realize like all of them different. You know what I mean? Like each of them different with a different type. Like the rhythm of different elements of the past. And I feel like all of them birthed out of Calypso too, you know.
Of course, definitely.
I feel like soca itself is even birthed from Calypso.
It was birthed from Calypso. I mean, the historians could explain that because it's not my role and function. But it did come out of Calypso, and of course, over the years, it morphed into different things and sounding different ways, and people put in their own spin and interpretations. And then, of course, the breakaways. So, you know, what you hear from Grenada would sound a little different. What you hear from Barbados would sound different. You know, what you hear from the Virgin Islands, different. You know, but they're all trying for the common goal, right? Which is pushing the genre. And I believe that the genre has so much to offer. Like when I am in places and spaces talking to non-Caribbean nationals, right? And I explain to them what soca music is, and I have to choose those words very carefully to describe them. I just describe it, you know, saying it's just so great. It's happy music, but everybody tells you that their music is great. So then I say, you know what? Let me give you 5 songs to listen to, you know? And I would curate a playlist and say, okay, just listen to these 5 songs and come back and tell me if my description was wrong. And then a lot of times, many times, they come back and say, oh my God, you just downplayed the explanation. Like the description that you gave to me was so downplayed because it's something that the experience, you know, and I think, as I always say, to love soca is to experience the music, right? It's like me telling a friend or telling other creatives that when they criticize music that's coming out from different islands or soca music coming out from different islands, you're not in a position to critique the music if you've not experienced it. So for example, I remember years ago, a friend was talking about music coming out of Spice Mass, and he was harshly critical of the music, right? The referral that he made, I don't even want to repeat it. And I said to him, bro, you cannot criticize Jab. You can't criticize the music that's coming out of Spice Mass unless you jump on a plane and go to Grenada in August and experience Carnival, because I have stood in Soca Monarch and feel the earth shake underneath my feet. You know what I mean? I have stood in Soca Monarch and feel the flames from Flambeau on my back. And that is something that I can't even explain what it feels like. You know, I have Jab covered in black oil and experience that and tripping down the road in the morning and tears was running out of my eye. I couldn't even explain why I was crying. It's an experience. It's an experience.
Like I've stood in St. Kitts Music Festival and I've watched Nyla Blackman, Skinny Fabulous. I've watched even recently Michael Teja, Nadia Batson, all of the soca stars. Like when them come on the stage, it's a difference because our Thursday night is the soca night.
Yes, the soca night.
And from all the years I've been to music festival, the standout night has always been the soca night.
Yeah.
And you can almost predict the lineup every year.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Our soca artists work very hard. Let me tell you, and I'm not comparing us to any other genre, but I am going to make this one comparison. I've not heard any dancehall artist or reggae artist say that they have done 5 shows a night, 8 shows a night, 10 shows a night. I've worked with artists who have done 25 shows in a weekend during Carnival time. They work really hard. That is not easy to do. I have sat in convoys where we go from 5 shows in Chagaramas back to Port of Spain to do 5, head down south to do 3, come back up the road and go back to the west again to do 3 more. You understand? Just to please, you know, satisfy that appetite of what the people want. You know what I mean? Like our acts work very hard. I feel as though we have to work harder because the genre is still so young. It's just a little over 50 years. According to the history books. So they have to work harder. It's still not an official genre in the DSPs. We're still fighting to find our place and that mainstream international recognition. Like they work very hard and it pleases my heart every time I see, you know, an artist getting an opportunity to share their talents in unique places and spaces, you know, being placed on African festivals. Patrice performed at the Raptors halftime game last year. You know, I think Lyrical is performing in Times Square sometime coming up soon. They're getting opportunities. Marshall is having shows in Apollo. You know, this is it's a big deal.
Marshall basically setting the bar.
Yeah, he definitely set the bar. I mean, Marshall has also worked out. We also have to give credit. I think a lot of times people feel as though they're reinventing the wheel, right? And there's no new idea. You know, in my opinion, right? There may be variations and alterations to those ideas, but what we are doing has been done before, right? The new acts coming in, they're doing things that have been done before, but they may find a different way to do it, or there would be different technological advancements to make it a little easier for them. But Marshall has definitely worked extremely hard to get to where he is now, and some of the challenges that he would have faced, and his team, his mom and everybody, and, the stance, or many of the stands that they would have had to take would have set the tone for the acts that came after them. And we also have to acknowledge that. And before him, there would have been others, So everybody's putting in the work, and we need to acknowledge how we can help each other, how our efforts have assisted in making things easier for others. And that is how the industry grows,
Right. Soca seems to be in a good space, in a good place. It's growing properly. I mean, it's a young genre in the grand scheme of things. It's very young. It's growing right. I mean, every year consistently I'm seeing at least 10 different soca artists in St. Kitts when the year is concluded.
Yeah.
Now, our next genre in Trinidad is the rise of Trinidad dancehall music. And I want to hear your opinion before me give you mine. What's your opinion on Trinidad?
What I would say is that I believe the genre has a lot of potential, right? My issue, cautiously, is that sometimes the decisions that the artists make in their personal capacity is affecting their ability to grow as professionals in music. Yeah. And we see it, we're seeing it, right? We're reading the news, we're watching social media, and we've had deaths. We've had, at the hands of violent acts, and it's nothing to rejoice over at all, because any life lost.
Well,
I mean, I'm stumped to finish that sentence, but I really do believe that paying attention to the climate is so important. I cherish and value my life, right? And because of that, I am very cautious about the decisions that I make, because I want to try as much as possible to preserve my life, because I am trying to create a legacy, right? And I also want to live to enjoy the fruits of my labor. And if you have been blessed with talent, right, that is being accepted, right? Because let me tell you, I remember when Trinidad just started to emerge, right? And of course, it was still very underground. And I went out with my younger cousins, because I'm not in the Trinidad circle at all. So very naively, we were hanging out in a bar in Mayaro. And all this music started to play in the bar. My cousins fielded the entire bar singing these songs. And I saying to myself, well, who is this? So my cousin telling me, this one is Scale Iron, this one is Rebel, this one is this one. And I said, but where are you all hearing the music though? Because it's not playing on radio, right? Because I had the opportunity, obviously, to listen to the lyrical content in the bar. So it's not playing on radio. So where are you all hearing the music? And I was fascinated to learn that it was through WhatsApp that the music was being circulated and everybody was getting these songs, all these youths. And then when it goes up on YouTube, well, where the music was going on before it went on YouTube. So by the time the artist had the opportunity to put it on YouTube, first day, 100,000 streams, I was in awe. Like when I went up and they started to give me names and I was up there searching, I was in awe. I said, but so when did you get this song? Oh, well, we get Monday, Saturday, they already know the song by heart. They know the songs by heart. I was in awe and I thought, wow, this is beautiful.
Remember, them time I just cover heart, them song.
They weren't really doing shooting music videos or anything as yet, right? And I thought that was amazing. I said, wow, if the soca industry was able to, converge and do something like that, you can imagine that these youths selling all this music not playing mainstream, it's not playing on radio, but yet still they're able to generate interest, pull the streams on social media, they have the followers, and then there's the conversation that's happening around these acts, that they have fans and they weren't even performing as yet. I thought that was so amazing. And that goes back to my point. Like these kids, let's say kids, because I don't even want to sound too old, but I'm just saying, right, these young stars who coming up in the genre, so much potential, right? They have all the resources available to them as far as, just now, the resources as far as technology, right? Being able to reach people, right? I know that there are other issues as far as some of them being from impoverished communities.
No, my 2 cents, I've spoken to these youths over the course of the past 2 weeks. I've spoken to how much? Nearly 40, 30 something of them, 20 something of them. And you said earlier, personal decisions. Sometimes the decisions, it for a lot of these youths, there isn't even a decision to be made. It has already been made for them.
Understood.
Coming from the backgrounds they come from.
Understood.
Now, music is expensive.
Understood.
To get the music to a level, there's a recording cost. Then there's a cost for videos.
Of
and
course.
videography is definitely not cheap. Now, an initial investment has to be made.
Of course.
When that investment is coming from these sources, the wrong sources, the bad sources, the affiliated sources, an artist doesn't even have a choice sometimes than to rep wherever the funding is coming from. You know what I mean? There isn't an option a lot of times for these youths. So when you see it, when we see it now, it's like they've been marginalized from the beginning. So the option isn't even there. You dig what I say? So it's a hard one. And I'm asking the question for the past 2 weeks. I ask this question so much because we see it even spill over into St. Kitts Nevis too.
Yeah.
How can we begin to see a change?
Now, I don't know, because Johnny Bravo is sitting in the background and I know he will recall a conversation that I had with him a few years ago where I called him and I said, Kevin, I don't understand, because as I said, I did not grow up in an impoverished community. I do not know some of those hardships, right? So I am operating somewhat
as an outsider,
in a naive space, right? And I don't want to have closed off perspective, right? And I asked him, I said, what would it take? Because you've heard the word bosses being thrown around, right? I don't know if they are bosses. I've never seen a boss. I've never met a boss. I don't know if the concept of a boss is for real, right? I'm saying this as my disclaimer. I don't know a boss, right?
Bosses do exist, though.
I don't know, right?
The reality is bosses exist.
I said to him, Kev, if there are bosses, right? Which he didn't confirm or deny. I just also want to say, right?
If
there are, right? What would it take to get them all in one room, right? For me to say to them, all you're messing up the bag, right? And Kevin is shaking his head because that was a real conversation. Because from an outsider, I feel like this. If there's a youth coming up in the community who has a particular unique set of skill sets, talents. In this case, we're talking about music. And I, as this ghost boss, the boss that the word, right, have the means to fund the career. Then I would want to protect my investment, right? So when you come to me, when I come to you and I say, okay, well, I see a singing on the block, this block that is talk about, I don't know if there's one, right? And I come to you, or you come to me and you say, well, boss, invisible boss, I want to be an artist and I really want to put out music. This is what it will cost. And we have some sort of conversation, some sort of contract. We talk about it, right? We agree that there's going to be a transaction. I am going to give you this and you're going to sing music, right? Then I would want you on the straight and narrow, right? There needs to be some level of accountability in this transaction, right? Where if I am this invisible boss and I am involved in illegal activities, let's just say this boss, then at no point in time, my investment, which is my artist, is supposed to be in any sort of association, right? This artist should not be used as a tool. My investment should not be used as a tool for any sort of rivaling. Because if I invest 50,000, right? I don't want to lose my money. You understand what I'm saying? I want to make back my investment plus some, right? And I said to Kev, I said to Johnny, I say, all of them messing up the bag. The entertainment industry could be lucrative if it's done correctly. There's a way that the music could be exploited. And when I say exploited, not exploited is not a negative word when we talk about the entertainment industry. There's synchronization opportunities, performance opportunities. Imagine a lot of these acts can't even go and sing in the street over, right? So while I do not understand all the dynamics and all the intricacies and all the issues, I do feel that one of the major issues is that first transactional conversation, right? The fundamental, that first conversation that happens between, as you said, some of them, the decision is already made for them.
No, hear my thing now. It's one thing to say that, because, all right, it sounds good as an outsider.
As I said, I am an outsider.
Sounds good as an outsider. But when you talk to that kid there, from these blocks, from these communities, they're singing songs about their communities. And if a situation happening where them are sing about them reality, and if it's that war a war them are sing about. And the music that they're singing is dancehall music. Zin, dancehall music have a clash culture. You dig what I say? So when words are being thrown in the music, I don't think that it was ever meant for it to be taken literally.
Right.
You dig what I say? So when an artist I said this about this area or that about that area, that's music. It shouldn't be held as reality.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be held as law because it's music. It's just like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I don't know how it's so much of a reality in Trinidad.
The music definitely should not be used. Yeah, the music should not be used as a tool at all. Unfortunately, it is what is happening. And again, as an outsider who is not operating in this space, as I said, I grew up kind of sheltered, to be quite honest, in the country, Princestown. You know, my parents were strict, you know, and a lot of things I wasn't very aware of, you know, when I was growing up. And not a perfect community. I mean, I see a little thing, you know, but not every day. You know, I never lived those realities. So I can understand that it's not easy, but I do believe that, one, it has a lot to do with the fundamental conversation. I think it has a lot to do with ego. It might have a little bit of illiteracy involved in it because people feel that, because they don't understand, it means that they will never know right from wrong. Environment has a lot to do with it. It's thinking that there's no way out when there is always a way out. But again,
I mean,
it sounds nice coming. That's what I just going to say. It might sound really good coming from me as an outsider because I have not lived any of those realities. So I'm trying to be as respectful with my responses because I have not lived any of those realities. What I do know is that, and what I do believe very strongly is that there's always a solution, and people have to be willing to find that solution and that resolution. And I remain very hopeful that it can happen. It's very sad to see continuously that what I will say my Black brothers and sisters, and I even living to see it, I mean. One
of them they tell me says, as a 26-year-old, he's an old man.
And that's sad. I mean, and I understand that is the reality of some, and it is very scary. It's scary to think that, some people are just so immune to the notion of death, that they are walking around looking over their shoulders daily because they know anytime their number could call. And I find that to be a very, very sad reality. And I am really hopeful. I believe that once there are words coming out of our mouths and we're able to speak, then we're able to find a solution and resolution.
Right.
But people have to be willing to do it.
I genuinely feel like if the music is a part of the problem, it's 5% of the problem.
Correct.
You know what I mean? The music shouldn't be used as a scapegoat.
The music should not be used. It should not be the scapegoat, but the music should not be the tool either. The music should never be the tool, right? Music is a form of expression, and I believe that people should be able to use music to tell their stories as storytelling. And I've not lived the life, so someone singing about what they're experiencing and going through is their story to tell. However, if now you're realizing that because you're telling those stories, it's creating issues, tell another story. Edit that story. Find something else to sing about. Because we have artists who are coming from areas where they have experienced hardship and finding ways to kind of try to stay clear of affiliations, or gun violence or whatever the case may be. There's some who are trying very hard to.
But then there's that youth who are trying for years, and I go tell you, say, like the reason why I have to do this now is because, hey, this positive thing now work. The youth them don't want to hear that. The youth them want to hear bust out head and all of them things.
As I've said, there is a space for all types of music because there are people who are willing to listen to different messages. A lot of it has to do with patience as well. Everybody want to bust and they want to bust big. Nobody wants to put in the work. Sometimes you see someone, become successful and you think, oh, that business was an overnight success. They worked 20 years for the success that we're seeing. A lot of these kids coming up now, they want immediate gratification. They want it now. You want to put out a song and they want it now, and they want it by any means necessary. Who is talking to them? Who are the people that are feeding them information? Because right about now, we need to have people who fill our cups up than empty it out. And that's what's going on with a lot of these youths, in my humble opinion. You know what I mean? But again, this has been going on for some time, and I do not know how long it will continue to occur. I do not know if it has to get worse before it gets better, and I hope that that's not the case.
Sadly, right? I feel like even with Wagwan home now in St. Kitts, it will get a lot worse before it get better, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't think this is the foundations of Trinidad. Literally, this is that first, you remember, well, you probably know more than me, but that first buzz that soca got in Trinidad coming from Calypso, this is the birth of Trinidad. It's not even 10 years old yet, you know?
Listen,
This is the birth of something new.
the
and we can't kill
genre, the acts that we have representing Trinidad, they are talented.
Very talented.
These guys are extremely talented.
Mm.
And if that talent is directed the correct way, then they can be living a life that is enjoyable,
Right.
you know. And I won't say stress-free because every day you get up is something to stress you out, you
They're
know.
supposed to have rich people stressed, man.
Correct.
Right.
You know, as I said, I am hopeful, just really, really hopeful that things can get better. And I want to say and encourage anyone, talk it out. I mean, there's always the opportunity to have a conversation once there are words coming out of your mouth.
All
you
right.
know?
And I feel like here is where we'll end our conversation. For now, we'll adjourn till the next time. Because this is definitely not my last trip to Trinidad. It's my first. And I feel like I see you at St. Kitts before. You know?
I've been longing to go to St. Kitts. I have not visited St. Kitts as yet, but I'm hoping that I'll be there soon.
All
Very
right.
soon.
Hear that? St. Kitts, big up.
Big
I'm
up
coming.
St. Kitts.
I'm coming. Well, when at the time of release, I'll be home of this episode. But people, remember to like, share, subscribe. Perspectives Podcast. We're winding up things in Trinidad, and the final episode is one of the. Anyways, until next time. Well.
Hoy, and I said nobody now believe it. Well, if them here say I me, I beat it. Me and the pastor, me not go preach it to how we hold it down. Yeah, man, it's Dejure, and I mean, giving you a different perspective on Perspectives Media. Easy.
Perspectives Media.